these contain Trump's priorities, and they're basic formalities, procedural formalities to unlock the door to build a reconciliation bill. Reconciliation is going to be it's got to be primarily revenue and expense based rather than policy based. So this is we've got 11 committees in the House that will be drafting portions of this, and that is President Trump's agenda. The other thing that we did, which I know that people had concerns, but this is what the president wanted, and he's right. We passed a continuing resolution through September 30th. Why is that important? That's the end of the fiscal year. We took care of the 25 budget with that with passage of that CR. And why should we not hate that CR? Because you froze spending. It's the first time that we were never going to get a deal that good. More importantly, we took all the leverage away. Now this thing is funded through September 30th, and we can get on with not only the DOGE waste, fraud, and abuse findings, but all of the other efficiencies that I talked about in response to an earlier question, which again is the Trump agenda. And you're going to see more of it. There's talk on the elections front about the federal elections. We, Congress, have the authority to establish same-day voting. We have the authority to establish through the SAVE Act, which was voted on last fall and will be voted on again here. We have the right to require proof of citizenship to register to vote. We have the right to pass a law that says that at the federal level that voting machines must be made in America, and the list goes on and on. The border, we've already given you the roadmap in the House. We passed the strongest border security bill in 20 years last Congress. Much of that is going to be done through the reconciliation process, and the rest we'll have to do through the regular process where you got to get 7 senators on the other side. But I don't think you want to be voting against Donald Trump and the American people when it comes to securing our borders and making our communities safe and secure. We are more than supporting President Trump. And we got to remember, you got 77 million people who voted for Donald Trump on November 5th. He won the election. Collectively, House members got 74.8 million votes. What does that mean, Todd? That means there's a little over 2 million voters that don't consider themselves Democrats or Republicans. They're Trump voters. And if we want to engage those Trump voters on our side of the aisle, if we want them to continue to come out and vote, it is imperative that we enact the Trump agenda. What he's done in 72 days is nothing short of incredible. What we're going to do in the next few months is in large part to codify those things that we can, those executive orders that he's been doing. We need to put those in law. So I'm sorry that you're not seeing it through the wonderful prism of our left-leaning media. But believe me, we are working hard in Washington to enact Donald Trump's agenda. And there's no question. We support it. Everybody here supports it.
Great. Thank you so much. Again, if you have a question for the Congressman, please press *3. We also have a poll question for everyone to participate in. So where do you get your news? What is your primary news source? Press 1 for cable TV. Press 2 for local TV. Press 3 for newspapers. 4 for social media. So where do you get your news? Cable TV 1, local TV 2, newspapers 3, and social media 4. You can just press that number on your keypad. With that, we'll go to another question. We have Tony from Anoka County on the line.
Well, you don't want local news. You don't want CNN.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I was just responding to your query. So, Congressman Emmers, I have a question in regards to Statute 245A. We recently seen the prosecution of the Feeding My Children fraud, $240 million in fraud perpetrated against the citizens of Minnesota in Medicaid voucher program fraud in our state. Many hardworking, industrious, generational Minnesotans are exposed to this fraud on a daily basis. It's estimated to be $612 million currently within Minnesota. Governor Walz has approved just one auditor investigator in the current budget to investigate this fraud. We have a well-meaning staff of 4 within the U.S. House who are investigating fraud, but unfortunately they don't have the support to investigate, prosecute, and remediate fraud in Minnesota. You drafted a letter in January of 2025 to Attorney General Bundy requesting assistance in this out-of-control fraud that we're experiencing here in Minnesota. What is the response, and what are the actions that are going to be taken by Attorney General Bundy and also your office to remediate this massive fraud that's occurring within our state?
Tony, I love the question. I love it because you actually know more than most Minnesotans, because our worthless paper in the Twin Cities refuses to report on the rampant fraud that's occurred under Tim Walz's administration. I think there's as many as 60 open fraud investigations. And by the way, you and I are paying for that. We're paying for it every day. It's the Feeding Our Future fraud case that you referenced, and investigations into fraud in child care and autism centers. Feeding Our Future, a Minnesota Department of Education program, was the largest COVID-19 fraud scheme in the nation. It was defrauded for $250 million in funds that were allocated for women and children. You would think the governor himself would be up in arms and trying to figure out who in the Department of Education was either complicit or was asleep at the wheel allowing this stuff to happen at that level. State and federal enforcement officers have clawed back roughly $75 million of the $250, but most of these funds have been spent or lost and will never be recovered. You're correct. I have sent letters. I've actually sent 4 letters with our Minnesota delegation to attempt to hunt down answers. 2 letters to the USDA because their first answer was lacking any substance whatsoever. That was under the Biden administration. 2 letters to the Minnesota Department of Education because they failed to provide a full accounting relating to the scandal. And that's under, obviously, the Walz administration, which has been completely inept and I would argue has been obfuscating and trying to put up roadblocks to any investigation. The Minnesota Department of Human Services is looking into 62 active investigations into child care centers across the state. These child care centers receive federal funding through the Child Care Assistance Program. One child care center received $7.8 million in federal funding since 2019 and had over 95 violations from 2019 to 2023. Tony, there's got to be corruption here because there's no reason that this should continue with those kind of numbers. I, along with the rest of our Minnesota Republican delegation, sent a letter to Governor Walz expressing concern about this fraud in child care centers. You think he's responded? No, and nobody in the local Twin Cities media is willing to hold him accountable. The FBI and the Minnesota Department of Health and Human Services are investigating fraud in autism centers, which have been receiving Medicaid reimbursements. Democrats are wondering why we're going after fraud in the new administration? Because it makes sense. Look at what we're dealing with. What I would say to you, Tony, is this is just the beginning. There's a new sheriff in town. Pam Bondi is our Attorney General, and she's already starting to put Minnesota on notice that these types of activities will be investigated, and we will identify where the problems are. And if people are involved and complicit, they will be found out, and they will be charged and prosecuted. This is a new world, and again, this corrupt media, it be a theme I'm going to give you all night. They want to say this is the retribution plan. No, it's not. This is holding people accountable who have turned our federal and state government into their own personal ATM. They have been stealing tax dollars through this waste, fraud, and abuse, and it's time that we identify not only the waste, fraud, and abuse, but the people that are responsible for creating it and making it happen. So I'm very confident that Pam Bondi and our U.S. Justice Department are going to get back to the business of working for the American people instead of the administration against their political enemies like the Biden administration did to Donald Trump.
Thank you for that question. We have some poll results. It's pretty evenly split, with 25% of respondents saying cable TV, 21% local TV, 24% newspapers, and 30% social media. So pretty split and pretty evenly spread out. With that, again, if you want to ask a question for Congressman Emmer, please press *3, and we will head over to Bill from Elk River. Bill, you are on the line.
Yes. Hi. This is Bill and Bill Poppert. And I worked with you, Congressman Emmer, back in 2019. In St. Cloud, we put on an international development seminar. Talking about, you recall that one, and I do. I was just very impressed with your professionalism and the good message that was delivered. And
thank you.
My business is the energy business, and I've been in that for a number of years, probably about 30 years. Ran the Elk River Energy City program, administered energy for the Carlson Company buildings, Radisson Hotels, TGI Fridays, and so on. Have written a book on the topic. I've worked in 8 countries in Africa, and I am so delighted to see a new pragmatic and conservative presence in Washington. And the new Secretary of Energy, Christopher Wright, really has the right idea. He is promoting American technology, American energy, best priced energy, but he has a very strong lean toward eliminating energy poverty in a business-like way, which is very much in sync with our book and teachings that we've had, but we have had less luck with the current administrations and some of the ways through foreign aid. So I met about a month ago with Robert Benson and had a very fine meeting with him in Otsego, left a book behind and other leave-behind materials. And I am looking for any assistance you can provide me, any references to Mr. Wright, to his staff, or perhaps to the people that are rebuilding our foreign aid structure in a new, streamlined, more pragmatic way.
I appreciate that. I don't know that Chris would be happy with me giving out his phone number on a telephone town hall, but we can certainly figure out how to do that, and I will follow up. I'll have Sally follow up with Bobby Benson herself. But the foreign aid thing, it's interesting. It's going to be rolled into the State Department, as you've heard. And, I got Minnesotans are very concerned because there are some programs in USAID that were good, but and I actually agreed with them. But the problem is the people who ran USAID, they turned it into their own personal ATM, their own slush fund. And they were using it for things that were not part of the mission. So they're the ones who have caused the problem. The Trump administration is going to try to clean it up. I think they've already started out well. What we're waiting for and what we need, what we've been asking for, is an appeals process. For the stuff that's good, tell us where we file an appeal with the administration about how we get that program back up and running, and who's going to run it. Where is it going to be? What under the umbrella of the State Department, where are you going to put it? And so far, Bill, I do not have that answer. Again, we're only 73 days in. And as Tony said, the Trump administration is working 18 to 20-hour days, doing just amazing things. This president, by the way, is a freak of nature. At 78 years old, I think it is, 77, 78, he probably sleeps 3 hours a day or a night at most, constantly working all the time. I can call him and he picks up the phone. He's always on. So I just know their heart's in the right place. They're doing the right things. They're trying to make sure that these funds are going to the purposes that they're supposed to go to, and that you, the taxpayer, are actually getting a return on the dollar that you're paying. But we'll follow up with you. You don't have to worry about following up with us. And I appreciate hearing from you. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, we will go to Jack from Monticello. Jack.
Yes, Congressman. My name is Jack Nelson from Monticello, and my question is, back before the first of the year, the House and the Senate passed the Social Security Fairness Act. They sent it on to President Biden to sign it. Well, that act took about 3 months once it got going to get finished and signed at the president's desk. What I'm asking is, why is the Major Richard Star Act, which benefits the veterans of this state and across the country, been waiting over 5 years to get an answer to this problem and get this law passed so that the veterans can receive the benefits that they should have? You know, the Social Security Act costed $196 billion over a 10-year program, and this Major Richard Star Act would cost $10 billion, and you guys are fighting it. You won't pass it because you say you can't find the money. Can you explain this to me, please?
I believe, Jack, I've co-sponsored the bill that you're talking about. I've been an author of it in the 115th Congress, the 117th Congress, and the 116th Congress, and the 117th. I've got a ton of history, past history, supporting the legislation you're talking about. I have not, if you are wondering, I have not co-sponsored it in the last 2 Congresses because I'm the majority whip. We typically don't co-sponsor bills that we're going to be whipping our members to support, because when you do that, then I'm going to be right away with somebody who might need to be convinced. They're going to say, "Well, you're already biased." So I try to stay off it as the whip. But you can look at my history, and by the way, you can know that I work closely with Chairman Mike Bost on veteran priorities. By the way, when I last co-sponsored the bill that you're talking about in 2022, I actually said, quote, "Our work to ensure our veterans get the benefits and recognition they have earned is never complete, and we're going to continue to demonstrate our commitment." The bill that you're talking about will expand retiree compensation for veterans who are forced to cut their military careers short due to combat-related injuries, allowing them to collect the monthly benefits that they were previously denied. It's supported not just by you, Jack, but by most major veteran groups and CVSOs. And we agree with Chairman Bost that this legislation is very important. It has not been scheduled for a vote at this time. The reason that we have not voted for it is simple. A large amount of outreach has received comments expressing concerns about layoffs at the VA. To put this issue into perspective, the St. Cloud VA has between 1,800 and 2,000 staff members. As of this month, the VA has terminated only 7 probationary employees from the St. Cloud VA system since January 26th. Bad actors are actually using their platform to fearmonger. We can do a bunch of different stuff for veterans, and that's what we're going to continue to do, Jack. But the bill that you brought up, because I can go on and on about our work with and for veterans in Minnesota and beyond. It's the most important work I think we do. Yeah, it's saving your tax dollars and everything else, but those of you that have put on the uniform and been willing to make the sacrifice, you and your family, to serve this great nation and protect our freedoms, we need to do everything we can to make sure we take care of you once you return, and thank you for your service. But the legislation that you're bringing up, feel free to call our Otsego office to get more details. That's 763-241-6848. But I've been a supporter, and I am a supporter. So thanks for your question.
Thank you. Reminder, if you have a question, please press *3. We have time for just a few more. Let's go to Lonnie from Blaine. Lonnie, you are on the line.
Hello, Mr. Emmer. I have a couple questions. One is, I have been a homeowner in Blaine for 7 years, and my taxes went from $1,800 to $3,950 this year. In 7 years. So that's a concern to me. Another concern is that my daughter is a teacher in the area, and I volunteer a lot, and she's like, no, Mom, you can't talk about this. You can't talk about that. You can't talk about that. It's kind of like, well, what am I supposed to talk about? You know, like you can't raise certain issues, and everything is so political on the left. And I am a staunch, Republican, and she has definitely said, Mom, maybe we need to watch some stuff together so we can kind of meet in the middle somewhere, but when Amy Klobuchar goes on television and lies outright about what the policies are, there should be something done about that.
So you're talking about policies in our schools?
I'm talking about policies that the president has said the president is trying to do, and she out and out lies about that. We're, trying to cut Social Security, and, it's not true. She's lying, and the media feeds her, and I think that if someone is out and out lying about a policy, they should just be, that's it. You're done. You cannot lie.
Well, I mean, you should tell our governor that. Apparently our governor on national TV, when he was confronted about his lies concerning Tiananmen Square, his explanation was, you know what, I grew up in a small town and sometimes I'm a bit of a knucklehead. You're right. They're lying about everything. And now they're fear-mongering on Medicaid cuts, etc. What Donald Trump has done for our schools, it's all common sense. His executive order, and if this is what your daughter's talking about that we can't talk about, we need to talk about the fact that biological girls should be allowed to compete with biological girls, not biological boys. It defies common sense, and this idiocy about we're being insensitive. No, everybody can live their lives the way they want. That's their business. This is a matter of safety. This is a matter of common sense. A biological male is going to be typically bigger and stronger and is going to cause harm to a biological female, depending on what the competition is. So I'm not sure. And by the way, our governor who thought that putting tampons in boys' bathrooms was a good idea. I'm sorry, folks. This stuff's insane. And it defies our common sense to even say that, I need to be sensitive about that. No, start calling it out. Tell them it's wrong. Stand up for this stuff. Otherwise, this crap is going to continue to take us down a dark hole. The good news for us, Lonnie, is these people are not in touch with Main Street in Minnesota or anywhere around the country. When you have the failed vice presidential candidate traveling around the country, doubling down on his crazy talk from the election last November, the election that they lost resoundingly, they didn't listen. They are a very small group in this country right now. My grandfather's Democrat Party does not exist any longer. It's become the radical Marxist, socialist, communist, whatever you want to call it, party of extremes. Are there good people that are still Democrats? Yeah, there's a bunch of them. And they're trying to figure out what they're going to do because their party is not listening to them either. For you and me, we just have to show we can govern. We got to do our job and show we can govern. Your tax issue, I've got the same one. My property taxes have skyrocketed. It's a county issue. This is something that we got to address in Minnesota, where the tax climate, if you're a billionaire, if you're a millionaire, it's not a big deal. If you're like the rest of us and you're just trying to pay your bills and make sure that you have a home that you can call your own, it's getting tougher and tougher. That's why at the beginning of this call, when I was doing the introduction, I talked about how prices have been coming down, the cost of gas, the cost of eggs, but we got a long way to go. I mean, the last 4 years really hurt. And now we've got to undo a lot of that, and we got to get this economy humming again. It's going to take a little bit of time. So God bless you for sticking up for what you believe in. God bless you for loving your daughter. We don't have to agree, but we have to have these conversations. We can't let people think we quietly agree with them. We don't. And you don't hate people by telling them the truth. We don't hate anyone, and we respect anyone's right to do whatever they want to do. But let's put common sense into this thing. Let's stop with the insanity. Thanks, Lonnie.
Thank you. We have time for just one or two more questions. Let's go to Denny from St. Cloud. Denny, you are on the line.
Congressman Emmer. Good
Hey,
day.
Denny.
How are you?
Doing great. Good to hear your voice.
You too. Say, the local Republicans, knowing my association and relationship with you, right now there's a lot of nervousness about the tariffs, what it's going to do, and I think we have to continue to work on educating people that our national debt is 106% of our GDP, and we have to go backwards to go forward. And there's a lot of nervousness with these tariffs tonight. Hakeem Jeffries has got on Republicans recession, and that's what he was on blabbing about tonight. When you talked about the fraud in Minnesota, I had a group meeting with Speaker Damus the other day, and she said we're at $644 million of fraud in Minnesota. And she said she really got to see the color of Governor Walz's eyes because he was very close to her, with her bringing in the Attorney General to investigate this. So we're working on that. But I think what we have to do, the third thing that I get asked a lot, are we going to get the tax on tips and the Social Security tax gone with the new bill that's coming through? So those are some of the things that have been on the forefront right now that are hot topics in the community, and you can respond and let me know what your feelings are.
Well, Denny, I appreciate it. But let's just start out by acknowledging that President Trump is actually putting American companies and American workers first. It's been the first time this has happened in 30 years. He's not putting everybody else first. He's putting the people that actually make things in this country and try to make ends meet. He's putting them first. These tariffs are going to protect American manufacturing, blue-collar jobs, and safeguard our economy from our foreign adversaries like China. We're no longer going to be exploited by other countries. Americans have been getting ripped off for more than 50 years now. Foreign nations now are going to pay for the privilege of accessing our markets. Today, President Trump announced reciprocal tariffs on nearly 60 countries, along with a baseline tariff of 10% on all U.S. trading partners. The reciprocal tariffs are being imposed at roughly half the rate the U.S. is charged by other countries, and they take effect on April 9th. The 10% tariff on all U.S. trading partners will take effect on April 5th. But just to give you an idea of what we're dealing with, China charges us, our producers, 67% tariff to take product into China. Trump is going to charge them 34%. That's his reciprocal tariff. The European Union, they charge us, our producers, 39%. Trump's going to charge them 20%. Vietnam charges our producers 90%. Trump's going to charge them 46%. The list goes on. India charges 52%. Trump's going to charge them 26%. South Korea is 50%. He's going to charge them 25%. Thailand is 72% tariff. Trump's going to charge them 36%. Look, this is not the wild and crazy thing that our biased, corrupt news media is putting out there, trying to scare the markets and the uncertainty and everything else. The markets will come around. The markets will stabilize now. I believe this will go quickly. Now that people know what this is, and they know April 5th is the date and April 9th is the date, I think you're going to see some of these countries, when they realize Trump is not doing a reciprocal tariff, which is you charge me 100%, I charge you 100%. He's actually still giving them a deal, but he's trying to improve the environment for the American companies and American workers. That is his priority, and I think he's going to achieve it. This is, by the way, all these guys who say you can't do this, we've been doing the same stuff for 30 years. Nothing else has worked. How about we give this guy some grace while he tries to actually do what he's been campaigning on for years in his mission to protect American companies and American workers. This is going to be successful, Denny. I tell people, tighten the buckle, because it's going to be a bit of a ride. There's still going to be some choppy waters, but when we come out of it on the other side, it's going to be much better than it was beforehand, and certainly much better than it was the last 4 years.
Thank you for that question. And with that, that is the end of our telephone town hall. Thank you, everyone, for participating. If you'd like to leave a voicemail at the end of this call, please do in our office, or Congressman Emmer will get back to you. If you are ever in need of assistance, please go to our website, emmer.house.gov. We have 2 offices in Minnesota, one in Otsego and one in Chaska, and then our Washington, D.C. office. Thank you again for your time, and have a great night.
The Access Live event has ended.
We've reached the end of our live telephone town hall. Thank you for taking the time to join us this evening. If we were not able to get to your question, please leave a message after the tone, and we'll be sure to follow up with you. Thank you.
Radio La Famille. Radio La Famille.
La musique clignote.
La